Welcome back to the Accessible Art History YouTube channel. In this week's video, I'm adding another addition to my 5 must-see masterpieces series. This time around, it's all about the Met Cloisters. Tucked away in Fort Tryon Park in New York City, the Met Cloisters is the only museum in the United States dedicated solely to medieval art and architecture. As a medievalist, seeing it this summer was a dream come true. I can't wait to take you on this journey through the highlights, though it was really hard to narrow it down to only 5. So I've chose a 6th work to share on Instagram. Keep an eye out there to check it out. Now, without further ado, let's explore 5 must-see masterpieces at the Met Cloisters. Before I go over the 5 works, I think that it's important to understand the history of the museum. In the early 1900s, sculptor George Gray Barnard was studying and working in rural France. To help supplement his artist income, he sold medieval sculpture and architectural fragments. There were many readily available because of political upheaval over the years, leading to the disrepair of rural churches. Barnard, a romantic at heart, loved to create stories about the pieces in his discoveries, embellishing them for his buyers. However, the outbreak of World War I was soon on the horizon, and Barnard was forced to move back to the United States for his safety. Disappointed but determined, he decided to open a small medieval-focused museum. Barnard wanted to show Americans the wonder of the time period and hopefully inspire a resurgence of interest. He named it George Gray Barnard's Cloister, but it was more of a random assembly of medieval art and architectural pieces. The museum was significant because it was the first medieval-focused museum in the country. In 1924, Barnard decided to put the museum and his collections up for sale. This piqued the interest of tycoon and philanthropist John D. Rockefeller. He gave the Met Museum the funds to purchase it and also donated 40 of his own medieval-era pieces to help bolster the collection's breadth. In just 3 short years, the Met realized they needed more space for the growing number of works, so they financed an expansion of Barnard's original building, and Rockefeller also donated land. 3 art historians and architects were brought on board: Charles Collins, Joseph Breck, and James Romier. Together, they worked to organize the collection to create the ideal visitor experience and continue scholarly research into the exciting world of medieval art. Today, an average of 300,000 people visit the Met Cloisters each year. It's a quiet, tranquil space that feels like a retreat from the hustle and bustle of the big city. I highly recommend a visit next time you're in the area. Alright, now that we've got some history established, let's dive into the works. I'm starting off things with what I believe is the crown jewel of the Cloisters collection, the Merode Altarpiece, also known as the Annunciation Triptych. It was painted by the workshop of Robert Campon circa 1427 to 32. In the center panel, we see the Virgin Mary quietly reading a devotional text. The Archangel Gabriel swoops in, but she hasn't noticed his presence yet. He's about to tell her that she's going to bear the Son of God. In fact, if you look closely, you can see the Holy Spirit floating in through an open window. The left panel shows us a view of a Netherlandish town. A couple is approaching the door on their knees, clearly aware of the event going on in the other room. This panel serves as a space for portraits of the donors. Finally, on the right panel, we see an older carpenter in his workshop making mousetraps. This is Joseph, Mary's future husband. And these aren't any ordinary mousetraps. They are called, quote, devil's mousetraps, and are an allusion to Joseph protecting Mary's virtue. What makes this work so remarkable is its use of color and light. Campon and his workshop utilized the relatively new invention of oil paints. This allowed for richer colors to be developed and a more reflective sheen to add depth. Its size and donor portraits suggest that it was a private devotional piece. Another remarkable work from the Cloisters is actually a set of tapestries, woven around 1500 in the Netherlands. These tapestries illustrate the story of the hunt of the unicorn. As the scenes unfold, we see a group of hunters happen upon the legendary creature in the woods. Then we see violence break out as they attempt to capture it. Besides the unicorn, there are birds, lions, rabbits, and dogs. In addition, art historians have identified over 100 species of flora and fauna that would have flourished at the time. The main theory for these tapestries is that they were made for the occasion of a noble person's wedding. We see a few initials stitched into the scenes, serving as a reminder of the happy couple. The Netherlands were the best place to get tapestries made in the 16th century, and these would have cost a pretty penny. It's amazing that they survived to the modern day. Fabric, although costly and finely made, is still susceptible to pests, weather, and poor storage. The Met Museum's conservation staff have worked hard over the years to ensure that they remain as beautiful and vibrant for visitors today as they were hundreds of years ago. The third piece on this list is a bit intimidating. It hangs from the ceiling of the Fuentedonia apse, the largest room in the Met Cloisters. It is Spanish in origin and was created around 1150 to 200. It is a crucifix sculpture that is meant to be seen from multiple angles. From the front, we see Christ in triumph. Yes, he was just killed on the cross, but his face appears calm and he's crowned as the King of Heaven in triumph. The back is a little bit harder to make out from centuries of wear and tear, but what remains is it appears to be intricate designs made of black and red paint. What makes this work intimidating but also amazing is its size. At the cloisters, it's hung above the apse and looks quite large, but in fact, it's even bigger than you imagine. The piece measures 102 by 81 inches or 260 by 207 centimeters. That's a whopping 8.5 feet tall. As a medieval worshiper, seeing this piece in a church would have been awe-inspiring. Unfortunately, art historians aren't sure which church this came from. They do know that it's Spanish and that large crucifix sculptures were quite common at this time. The provenance is murky though. There is one source, unreliable source that is, that attributes it to the later convent of Santa Clara in Estillo, but we don't know for sure. A video about medieval art wouldn't be complete without an illuminated manuscript. The Belles Heures of Jean de France Duc de Berry are one of the best examples of this art form, and they just happen to be in the collection of the Cloisters. They were created by the Limburg brothers around 1405 to 1408. These brothers were considered to be the top manuscript illustrators of their day, and looking at this book, the honor seems well deserved. There are 172 illuminations in total and 7 cycles of holy figures. We also see, quote, calendar pages which help track different events throughout the year. Each illustration is elaborately done with minute details added for the viewer's benefit. They're often described as the perfect combination of Italian figure painting with a northern interest in natural details. Many of the larger pages feature a central scene relating to text. Then, decorating the edges, we see floral designs and motifs. It's astonishing to think about all the hours that went into making this beautiful manuscript. I know I already chose one cross-shaped work for this video, but I couldn't resist adding this piece as well. Known simply as the Cloisters Cross, it is considered a masterpiece of British Romanesque art. The cross is made of walrus ivory and is carved with an amazing 92 figures and 98 inscriptions. It was made in the late 12th century, and there are 2 different stories being told. The first is scenes from Jesus' death and resurrection. The second is a series of prophets with texts foretelling the arrival of Christ. The cross is also carved with details to resemble a tree branch, perhaps representing the tree of life. Awkwardly for modern viewers, there are several inscriptions reflecting anti-Jewish sentiments. However, knowing the world in which it is carved, it's unsurprising, though it doesn't make it right. Jews were blamed for many things in medieval England, and they were fully expelled from the country in the 13th century. Although uncomfortable, it's an important reminder of the past and how we can confront these incorrect assertions today. The Met Cloisters is a remarkable museum. Filled with treasures of the medieval world, it's hard to pick only 5 to showcase in this video. So make sure to check out my Instagram at accessible.art.history to see a bonus 6th work.